As demand for ivory increases in Asian countries such as China and Thailand, so too does the illegal poaching of African elephants, which is now the worst it has been in 10 years. Ivory is particularly popular in Asia for chopsticks, statues, and jewelry. In the struggle to keep up with the fight against poachers, the UN is being urged to lift its ban on ivory trade in order to relax the demand and sell ivory already confiscated to put the money back into the protection of elephants. It is proposed that the ivory that came from elephants who died naturally, were considered a threat, or ivory already poached could be auctioned off. Environmentalists in the Central and East African countries have opposed the suggestion, fearing it will not work and only fuel the trade. In Australia there are no wild elephants, but there are several in captivity. Taronga Western Plains Zoo holds the only African elephant in Australia rescued from a circus, along with some other Asian elephants. Reaching her old age, she is likely to be the last African elephant to be seen in Australia for a very long time. This brings the question, what if there was another way to protect more of these animals in a way that could help us? What if we could have wild elephants in Australia moved from areas in Africa where populations are thriving into Australia's north? Gamba grass was introduced from Africa into Australia's north in 1931 to aid cattle farmers. It is able to support 40 times more cattle than native grasses. However, what wasn't considered was when this grass goes wild, it can grow 4 meters tall and outcompetes native grasses. When the real danger is in the dry season when it becomes a major bushfire threat. Having evolved in Africa's hot climate, it burns 10 times more intensely than Australia's grasses and burns much higher and faster, making fires difficult and dangerous to fight, as well as putting towns and lives at risk. The high flames reach the leaves of tall native trees, killing them off while the gamba grass continues to grow, so far threatening Kakadu National Park, the Kimberley Wilderness, and Daintree Rainforest. In Africa it is controlled by African elephants and rhinos who with their large size have no trouble eating it. In Australia there are no native large animals adapted to control it. Current measures such as slashing and aerial spraying are expensive, time-consuming and impractical, and essentially ineffective long-term. David Bowman, Professor of Biology at University of Tasmania, puts forward the controversial idea of introducing elephants to Australia to tackle the problem. It would be a 24/7 solution and would reduce other costs, potentially preventing fires and saving lives. Not only that, but they can control native pests like foxes and rabbits. It would also aid in the protection of elephants currently under threat in Africa if monitored and managed properly. While it would be ideal for elephants to come live in harmony with our native species in Australia, this is rarely the case. Dr. Ricky Spencer, Senior Lecturer with the Native Pest and Animal Unit at UWS, describes Professor Bowman's comments as careless. If we went down that road, we had better develop technology to clone saber-toothed tigers to control the elephants. Given Australia's track record with the introduced species to control other introduced species such as with the cane toads, it is fair for people to be apprehensive, most saying it will only continue to worsen our problems. It may also attract unwanted poachers to Australia. In Africa, some villagers describe elephants as a nuisance, destroying their vegetation and houses. Who's to say they won't go for our native vegetation instead, causing further irreversible devastation? Though controversial, Professor Bowman's aim is to get people thinking about proactive solutions to gamba grass problems in Australia. When looking at elephants in Taronga Western Plains Zoo, it is not impossible to imagine these amazing animals wild in Australia, and it is evident that something more has to be done to protect these species in elephants from places where they are continuously mistreated.